My brother humiliated me at his wedding. Then karma served him cold justice. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. You never forget the moment your life splits into a before and an after. For me, it happened beneath a canopy of fairy lights, in front of 150 friends and relatives, during my brother's wedding toast. My brother, Daniel, always loved an audience, but that day he wanted blood. And I was the sacrifice. He clinked his glass, waiting for the laughter to die down. Before I raise a toast, he grinned. I think my little sister has something to confess. A pause. People shifted, puzzled. Or should I say, something she's been hiding from all of us. My chest tightened. This wasn't in the plan. He went on, voice syrupy sweet. Funny how some people always play the victim. Always struggling, always needing help. Let's be honest, everyone. Who here hasn't bailed her out at least once? Laughter, nervous, awkward, and then a ripple as people looked at me. My face burned. I wanted to sink through the floor. I managed a shaky smile. But Daniel pressed on, now reading private texts from my past, twisting them into punchlines. The crowd, our family, his friends, even my ex, laughed harder with every blow. The bride looked mortified, but Daniel looked victorious, like he'd finally found a way to put me in my place. Afterwards, no one met my eyes. My mother wrung her hands, whispering, "He didn't mean it." My father sipped his drink and avoided me entirely. I disappeared to the parking lot, hands trembling, replaying every word in my head. But humiliation has a half-life, and shame, in time, can turn to anger. Because what Daniel didn't realize was that weddings end, but secrets and karma always have their day. Almost a year later, I watched as my brother stood in court, his own mask stripped away, and the world finally saw who he really was. But back then, all I could do was cry in my car, not knowing revenge had already begun to write itself. The morning after Daniel's wedding, I woke up to a phone buzzing nonstop, texts, missed calls, and worst of all, social media notifications. My heart dropped as I scrolled through Instagram and saw the videos. Someone had filmed the whole humiliating toast, catching every punchline, every time my face crumpled, and everyone laughed. By noon, the clip had gone viral among our town's circles. The comments were brutal. Some laughed along with Daniel, others said I needed thicker skin. My inbox filled with pitying messages, and even my so-called friends didn't know what to say. A few old flames messaged, "Hope you're okay," but it felt hollow. Shame washed over me, deeper than before. My family's reaction made everything worse. Mom left voicemails. "He's your brother. Forgive him. It was just nerves." Dad texted, "Let it go. Don't make a scene." Only my Aunt Rose called to say, "You deserved better than that. Don't let him rewrite who you are." For a moment, I cried just from relief that someone actually saw me. The isolation was suffocating. I skipped work, shut off my phone, and binge-watched mindless TV, desperate to escape my own name trending on Facebook. Nights were the hardest. My thoughts circled back to Daniel, wondering why he hated me enough to turn my life into a punchline. A week later, the dust began to settle, but the damage was done. I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling eyes on me. At my lowest, I considered deleting every account and moving away. But then, as I scrolled through the endless comments one last time, I found a message request from a stranger. "I know what Daniel did, and you're not the only one he's hurt. If you ever want to talk, reach out." For the first time since the wedding, hope flickered. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt. But the true consequences of Daniel's cruelty were just beginning to surface. I hesitated before replying to the stranger's message, rereading it a dozen times. The words felt like a lifeline, tossed into the storm of my shame. With trembling fingers, I finally typed back, "Who are you? What do you mean?" Minutes later, the reply came. "Call me Jamie. Let's just say I know exactly how your brother operates. I saw what he did to you, and I've been there. If you want to hear the real story, let's meet. Coffee. No pressure." Skepticism warred with curiosity. What did Jamie know about Daniel that I didn't? Part of me wanted to crawl deeper into hiding, but something in Jamie's tone felt genuine, raw, even. That night, I tossed and turned, the video of my humiliation replaying in my mind, but now a new thread pulled at me. Daniel, always the golden child, always hiding something beneath that charm. Had others been hurt? The next day, I agreed to meet Jamie at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. My hands shook as I waited, scanning faces, half expecting a prank. Instead, a young woman my age slid into the seat across from me, eyes kind but wary. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. "I'm sorry for what you went through." I managed a tight smile. "You said you knew Daniel?" She nodded, glancing around. "We dated a few years back. At first, he was perfect, funny, attentive, charming. Then he started making little jokes at my expense, always in front of people. I thought it was me, until he went too far at a party, and everyone laughed while I cried in the bathroom." Her voice shook, but she pressed on. "Daniel can't stand not being the center of attention. Hurting people is his party trick. But karma always circles back, even if it takes a while." Hearing her story didn't erase my pain, but it made me feel less alone. And for the first time, I realized maybe my humiliation was only the beginning of Daniel's unraveling. Just as Jamie and I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A news alert, Daniel's name in the headline. My blood ran cold. My fingers fumbled as I unlocked my phone. Jamie leaned in, eyes wide. The headline blared in bold. "Local businessman under investigation for fraud." Right underneath was Daniel's smug wedding photo. That same grin he wore when he tore me down. I could barely breathe. My first instinct was denial. This had to be a mistake, a clickbait article. But the details left no doubt. Daniel's new tech startup, the one my parents had boasted about to anyone who'd listen, was being accused of falsifying financial records and misleading investors. Comments were already piling up. For once, they weren't laughing. Jamie squeezed my arm gently. "Looks like the universe has its own sense of timing." I wasn't sure how to feel. Part of me felt a vindictive thrill. Maybe he was finally facing consequences for all the pain he caused. Another part felt sick. He was still my brother, and despite everything, some small piece of me wanted him to change, not collapse. My parents called before I'd even finished reading the article. "You've got to talk to Daniel," my mother begged, her voice frantic. "This can't be true. The family's falling apart." I hung up without answering. For years, I'd been the one to clean up Daniel's messes, absorb the blame, patch the cracks in our family. This time, I let the silence answer for me. Later that night, I scrolled through my messages, some from strangers, some from old friends. Most offered sympathy, a few apologized for laughing at the wedding, but one stood out. An anonymous tip, just 2 words. "Check his emails." My hands shook with anticipation and dread. I texted Jamie. "Do you want to help me find out the truth?" She replied instantly. "I thought you'd never ask." The shame Daniel tried to bury me in was transforming into something else, a hunger for answers. I had no idea what we would uncover, but I knew it was finally my turn to stand in the light. Jamie and I sat side by side in her small apartment, our laptops glowing in the darkness. She'd managed to recover an old email login Daniel used when they dated, something he'd never bothered to change. My pulse pounded as I typed in the credentials. A rush of adrenaline, a hint of guilt, then relief when it worked. Dozens of unread messages blinked back at us. We scrolled past old party invites and family group threads. Then we started spotting emails from Daniel's business partner, the one mentioned in the news article. The subject lines got darker. Urgent, account shortfall, meeting, no paper trail, delete after reading. One message, marked with a red flag, made my heart stop. "We need to move the money before end of quarter. No one can trace it back to us, not even family. Play dumb if anyone asks." Jamie's eyes widened. He was hiding more than jokes. He was hiding crimes. We screenshotted everything. The further we dug, the uglier it got. Fraudulent invoices, forged signatures, even files named after family members, as if he'd used us as cover stories. My hands shook with equal parts rage and disbelief. The most damning message was recent. Daniel bragged about his wedding being the perfect distraction from all the chaos at work. He joked about me, how easy it was to make everyone look at my embarrassment instead of his own looming scandal. Jamie put her hand on mine. He's been using everyone, even his own blood. For the first time since that awful day, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. If Daniel thought I'd stay quiet forever, he was wrong. Just then, my phone rang. My mother, her voice shaking. "Your brother needs you. He's falling apart. Please, come home." But I knew. I wasn't coming to save Daniel. I was coming to save myself and bring the truth with me. The drive to my parents' house felt like returning to the scene of a crime. Shadows from streetlights flickered across the dashboard as Jamie and I rode in silence. The USB stick with Daniel's emails warm in my pocket. My mother's texts became more desperate with every mile. Please hurry. Daniel's not himself. We need you. For years, I would have rushed home in guilt and fear, desperate to keep the family peace. Tonight, I was different. We pulled up to the old house. Same porch, same chipping paint, but everything felt smaller. Inside, the tension was so thick I could barely breathe. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, suit rumpled, and eyes wild. My father hovered near the window, chain-smoking, while Mom paced with red-rimmed eyes. Daniel looked up, and for a moment, I saw my little brother, the one I'd once protected. Then I remembered every word from the wedding, every cruel joke. He broke the silence first. You're here to gloat? I shook my head. No, Daniel. I'm here because it's time you stop hurting people and start telling the truth. Jamie sat beside me, silent but supportive. I placed the USB on the table. We know everything. The emails, the fraud, the way you used us all as shields. His face drained of color, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Dad turned on him, voice rough. Is it true? Did you drag this family through hell for your own mess? For the first time, Daniel didn't have a comeback. Just a flicker of real fear. Mom clutched my arm, pleading. Don't do this, sweetheart. He's your brother. I looked her in the eye, voice shaking but firm. He stopped being my brother when he decided my pain was entertainment. In that moment, I felt the weight of my humiliation lift. For the first time, Daniel looked small, and I felt free. But outside, headlights flashed in the driveway. Police. Karma had arrived, right on schedule. Red and blue lights pulsed against the curtains, painting the kitchen in surreal colors. Daniel froze. My parents looked from him to me, realization dawning. The knock at the door was sharp, official. No more secrets, no more stalling. Dad answered, and two officers entered, their presence filling the room with finality. Daniel Edwards? One asked. Daniel's voice cracked as he confirmed. The officers explained the charges: fraud, embezzlement, falsifying documents. The evidence, they said, was overwhelming. I watched as Daniel's bravado evaporated, replaced by a childlike terror I'd never seen before. Mom sobbed, clutching my arm until her nails dug in. Dad's shoulders slumped in defeat. I'm so sorry, Daniel choked as they cuffed him, but I couldn't tell if it was for himself or for us. As they let him out, he looked back at me, searching for forgiveness in my eyes. I held his gaze but offered nothing. He needed to understand the pain he'd caused. Jamie slipped her hand into mine, steadying me. My heart hammered, not with fear, but with a fierce relief. The police car rolled away, leaving a strange, hollow quiet in its wake. Mom finally broke the silence, her voice trembling. You did the right thing. I wish things were different. I nodded, tears hot in my eyes, but I didn't look away. For the first time, I didn't feel like the family's burden. I felt like someone who could survive. Outside, the world kept moving. Inside, the cracks in our family were exposed for all to see. But for once, the shame wasn't mine to carry. Later that night, a message from an unknown number appeared on my phone. You're stronger than you think. Proud of you. Jay. As I read it, I realized Daniel's downfall wasn't just his karma, it was my new beginning. In the days that followed Daniel's arrest, my family became a battlefield of grief, denial, and awkward silences. The story exploded online. News outlets ran his mugshot, old friends messaged in shock, and even those who'd once mocked me reached out, unsure what to say now. Mom drifted through the house like a ghost, clutching old photo albums, desperate to find some memory where we'd all been happy. Dad busied himself with repairs, anything to avoid facing the pain in the kitchen. Jamie never left my side. She cooked, cleaned, and fielded reporters who showed up at the door. Sometimes we sat together in silence, just breathing, letting the world's chaos rage outside. One afternoon, as I scrolled through the endless news feeds, a new video surfaced. Someone had dug up the wedding toast again, this time with a new caption. Karma comes for the golden boy. Watching it, I expected the old sting of humiliation, but instead I felt a strange distance, like I was seeing someone else's life. People in the comments were switching sides now, defending me, even apologizing for laughing before. For every troll, there were 10 messages of support. It helped, but it didn't fix everything. Family friends called to offer condolences or to gossip. Mom begged me to visit Daniel in jail, to help him heal. I shook my head, standing firm. He needs to face this, Mom. We all do. That night, I sat on the porch with Jamie. Do you ever feel guilty for surviving? I asked. She squeezed my hand. Sometimes, but mostly I feel proud of you, of us. It takes guts to stand up for yourself. The weight of shame was finally fading, replaced by something brighter, hope. Daniel's downfall was messy, public, and heartbreaking. But for the first time, I could see a future that was truly mine. As I drifted to sleep, my phone buzzed, a new message. Meet me tomorrow. I have something for you. Jay? Jamie smiled when she saw it. Maybe it's time for some good news. Morning sunlight crept across my bedroom ceiling, bringing a strange sense of anticipation instead of dread. For the first time in months, I felt awake, like the fog of shame and fear had finally started to clear. I texted Jamie back, where and when. She replied almost instantly, Riverwalk Cafe, noon. Trust me. I arrived early, nerves buzzing. Jamie was waiting with a manila envelope and a tentative smile. You ready? She asked, sliding it across the table. This isn't just for you. It's for anyone Daniel ever hurt. Inside were printed messages, screenshots, and handwritten notes. Dozens of stories from people who'd crossed paths with Daniel. Ex-friends, old co-workers, even a neighbor he'd scammed out of rent money. Their words echoed with the same pain and confusion I'd felt, each one a piece of the puzzle. Some even mentioned his wedding antics, describing how he thrived on making others feel small so he could shine brighter. I felt a lump in my throat as I read. How did you? Jamie shrugged, eyes gentle. People started reaching out after the story broke. You weren't the only one waiting for karma. They just needed someone to go first. We spent hours sorting through the stories, laughing and crying in equal measure. It felt healing, like gathering the pieces of a broken mirror and finally seeing the true reflection. For the first time, I realized my story wasn't just about Daniel's cruelty. It was about all of us who'd survived it and chose to speak up. Later, Jamie placed her hand over mine. You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone. Not anymore. Outside, the world moved on, but inside, I felt anchored. I wasn't just the punchline of Daniel's joke. I was the beginning of something bigger, a wave of truth and solidarity. As we left the cafe, I received another message, this time from Daniel himself, short and desperate. Please, I need to talk. I'm sorry. But forgiveness wasn't a given. It had to be earned, and I was finally ready to decide what came next. Daniel's message sat on my phone like a stone in my stomach. Part of me wanted to delete it, pretend I'd never seen it. Another part, the old sibling instinct, wanted to answer immediately. In the end, curiosity and unfinished wounds won out. I called him. The jail's call center buzzed and clicked before Daniel's voice, smaller than I remembered, came through. Hey, thank you for picking up. A long silence stretched between us. He finally broke it, voice cracking. I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I had to say it. I wanted to scream, to list every hurtful word and betrayal, but the anger had burned itself out. You hurt a lot of people, Daniel. Me most of all. He didn't argue. I know. I thought if I was the loudest, the funniest, no one would see how scared I was. I lost everything, and I deserve it. For a moment, I heard my brother again, the boy I'd grown up with, before pride and cruelty twisted him. I hope you mean that, I said quietly. Because fixing things starts with facing what you've done, not running from it. Daniel sniffed. I do. I'm getting help in here. I just wanted you to know you didn't deserve any of it. It wasn't a fairy tale apology, but it was real. For the first time since the wedding, I felt a piece of me settle. I didn't forgive him completely. Maybe I never would, but I could let go of the part of myself that still craved his approval. After we hung up, I stepped outside into the sunlight, breathing in hope instead of regret. Jamie called to check in, and I told her everything. You're moving forward, she said. That's what matters. And as the day went on, I realized that Daniel's fall didn't define me. My healing and my happiness were finally in my own hands. But as life started to return to normal, a letter arrived in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single sentence. Every truth has its price. The anonymous letter rattled me more than I expected. I read the words. every truth has its price. Over and over, the neat handwriting sending a chill up my spine. For a moment, I wondered if this was another of Daniel's twisted games. But the ink, the phrasing, it felt different. Colder. As if someone out there didn't appreciate how far the truth had spread. I showed Jamie that evening, sliding the letter across her kitchen table. She frowned, tracing the words with her finger. You think someone's threatening you? I shrugged, trying to keep my voice steady. Maybe. Or maybe it's just someone who wishes I'd stayed quiet. But I'm not going back into hiding, not after everything. Jamie nodded, but I saw the worry in her eyes. You change things, you know. Most people never stand up. That scares some folks. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every shadow outside my window felt sinister. I found myself double-checking locks, scanning through my inbox for more anonymous threats. The world felt heavy with consequences. The wave I'd started was bigger than just my family. Other people's secrets were surfacing too. Some were grateful, some were furious. The next morning, my mother called, voice weary. We're getting strange calls. People are saying you ruined Daniel's life for your own gain. Is that true? The old guilt tried to creep in, but I pushed it back. No, Mom. I didn't ruin his life. He made his choices. I just refused to be his cover anymore. Silence. Then, quietly, I hope you're right. After we hung up, I sat in the sun, letting the fear fade. The price of truth was steep, but so was the cost of silence. Later, Jamie surprised me with a gift, a small notebook embossed with gold. For the next chapter, she smiled. And for the first time, I felt ready to write it, no matter who tried to stop me. I ran my fingers over the notebook Jamie gave me, its pages crisp and inviting. For the next chapter, she'd said. I didn't know yet what I would write, but I felt something shift, like my story belonged to me again, not to my brother, my family, or anyone else. The letter still nagged at me, but I refused to let fear dictate my choices. Instead, I focused on small victories, returning to work, reconnecting with friends who'd quietly supported me, accepting apologies from those who'd once laughed. Every day felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. One afternoon, as I scribbled in the notebook, a message from a former classmate popped up. I saw what happened with Daniel. You were always braver than the rest of us. I replied with a simple thank you, but the words filled me with warmth. Maybe my story could help someone else find their voice. Meanwhile, Daniel's trial date was set. The news dredged up old anxieties, but this time I faced them head-on. When Mom begged me to speak as a character witness, I shook my head gently. He needs to be accountable, Mom. Shielding him never helped any of us. Jamie stood by me through every storm. One night, as we watched the sun set from her porch, she asked, "What would you write if you weren't afraid?" I thought about it. The humiliations, the fear, but also the hope. I'd write that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. We sat together in quiet understanding. The future still scared me, but I was done living in the shadows of someone else's mistakes. As I closed the notebook for the night, I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning, one I'd write on my own terms, no matter what ghosts lingered. And somewhere, in the quiet, I realized the truest justice was reclaiming my life and living it well. The courthouse felt colder than I expected, sterile walls, echoing footsteps, faces turned away to avoid awkward recognition. I sat in the gallery, heart racing, as Daniel entered in a suit too big for his new, shrunken frame. For a fleeting moment, he looked like the brother I'd once idolized, not the villain of my nightmares. Reporters crowded the hallway, their cameras flashing. I spotted Jamie in the back row, her steady presence grounding me. Mom and Dad sat near the front, clinging to each other, pale and silent. The prosecutor read out the charges: fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. Daniel's lawyer spun stories about unimaginable pressure and momentary lapses in judgment, but the evidence Jamie and I had gathered was airtight. Each email, each bank statement, each testimony from those Daniel had wronged landed like a blow. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he was just afraid. During a recess, I found myself in the bathroom, staring at my own reflection. Did I look different now? Stronger? I thought about that first message from Jamie, about the strangers who'd reached out, about the quiet pride in my own chest. I'd survived my brother's cruelty and the fallout of telling the truth. The judge's verdict came quickly, guilty on all counts. The sentence was years, not just behind bars, but away from the spotlight Daniel had always craved. Mom wept. Dad finally seemed to exhale, his shoulders sagging. After the trial, Daniel was allowed a moment with family. He glanced at me, eyes rimmed with regret. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. For the first time, I believed he meant it. But I also knew that my healing wasn't dependent on his apology. Outside, Jamie wrapped me in a hug. "It's over," she whispered. "You did it." But I knew. This ending was just the start of something new. When the news broke about Daniel's conviction, my phone lit up with messages, some supportive, some curious, a few apologetic. My social media feed transformed almost overnight. People who once mocked or pitted me now sent words of encouragement. Strangers shared their own stories of betrayal and justice. For the first time, my name wasn't just attached to shame. It was connected to strength. Mom and Dad retreated from the public eye, rarely leaving the house. I visited sometimes, healing old wounds, but always leaving before the air grew too heavy with regret. Our family dinners were quieter, but less tense. It was as if, with Daniel's secrets out, we could finally talk honestly, even if it meant awkward silences. Jamie remained my anchor. She encouraged me to write, to share my story not just in private, but publicly. Articles, support groups, even an open mic at a local community center. I was nervous at first, my voice shaking, but as I spoke, I saw faces in the crowd light up with recognition and hope. At one event, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "Your story made me feel less alone," she whispered. I realized then that my journey wasn't just about justice. It was about connection, about turning pain into something meaningful. Spring brought new beginnings. Jamie and I found a tiny apartment, sun-drenched and full of plants. We made our own traditions, Sunday morning pancakes, movie marathons, shared notebooks filled with dreams. I felt lighter, as if the past had finally loosened its grip. One evening, as the sun set, Jamie handed me my old notebook. "Read the last page," she said, smiling. I opened it to find her handwriting. "You are not what was done to you. You are what you choose next." For the first time, I truly believed it. But as I looked out the window, the world wide open before me, a single thought remained. My story wasn't over. It was finally, gloriously mine. The anniversary of Daniel's wedding arrived quietly, a date I once dreaded, now just a marker of how far I'd come. That morning, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back. There was no shame in my eyes, no hesitation in my stance. Just a steady, quiet confidence that had taken a year and a lifetime to build. Jamie made breakfast, filling the apartment with the smell of fresh coffee and hope. As we ate, we laughed about the past and dreamed about the future, travel, new jobs, maybe even a dog. The wounds Daniel left behind were still there, but they'd faded, replaced by something stronger. Later, I visited my parents. We talked about everyday things, weather, neighbors, even Daniel, now just another story in the family album. Mom cried, but it was a gentle sadness, tinged with acceptance. Dad finally hugged me, whispering, "I'm proud of you." The words meant more than I expected. That afternoon, I found myself walking the same path I'd taken the night of the wedding. Only now the air felt different, lighter. I called Jamie, telling her I loved her, and for the first time, the words felt easy, natural, free. As the sun set, I pulled out my notebook, writing a final entry. "You can't control what others do to you, but you can choose who you become next." I looked up at the world around me, wide open, full of possibility. My brother's cruelty no longer defined me. The echoes of humiliation had faded into a story I owned. Karma had come for him, but I had found something better: peace, self-respect, and a future on my own terms. My journey had been painful, but necessary. In the end, it was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice, my power, and my happiness. And as I walked home, head high, heart steady, I knew this was just the beginning.